Everybody, today is Friday, May 18th, 2018. This is MMA Junkie Radio's pre-show, the show before the show. I'm Goes, that's Dan, that's Danny. Danny.
Hi, that's me.
Tell us about Deadpool without giving any spoilers.
Yeah, careful.
It was a very good movie, in my opinion at least. And one of the main reasons why I thought it was a good movie was the fact that we all went in with expectations of, oh, it's going to be exactly the same as the first one because it did so well. But I thought it was funny for different reasons. Like, they didn't just recycle old jokes unless they were on purpose pointing to it being an old joke type of thing. And I like that with sequels. Like, there are so many sequels that do that and then the sequel's ruined. Like, you know what I mean?
Who'd you go watch it with?
My guitarist. Same guy that I went to go see Avengers with, because I kind of basically I just said to him, I was like, look, Avengers kicked our ass with what happened in that movie. I said, I've heard that this is the comic relief that everybody who's suffering from Avengers Infinity War needs. So I was like, we should probably both go see this.
What's up, Andrew Simon? Ah, I like it. We're doing our pre-show right now.
Okay. The show before the show.
Yeah.
Whoa. That was loud.
Girls, keep your scorpion away from the show, man.
Danny, slam that mic right into the into the table.
It was so loud.
Drops the mic before he gets
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
So, speaking of movies, we found out before the show that Danny's never seen Bloodsport, but
I have not.
I don't know if I should wait till the main show to out him, but I'll out him now. It's okay. Actually, it's not even bad.
George has never seen Bloodsport either.
What?
I'm not 100% sure, but
I will.
That doesn't count.
I'm gonna bite my tongue and I'm gonna drop this on the show then. If there's
if you put it out to Junkie Nation, more people would have seen it than not seen it.
Yeah.
But George hasn't seen a lot of movies.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding out. So I'm surprised because he really quotes the ones he knows so well that I'm like, oh, this guy knows his movies, you know. But it's not.
Oh, great! Now people are gonna start saying, giving me shit now. Thanks.
No.
It's already happening.
What? Who's giving you shit?
Josh Hernandez in the chat. What, Danny?
That's great. No, I actually like it because check this, because it's like when you get to watch get someone's reaction from it, or even when you get to watch it with that person, it's always a kind of a
coming up
fun
at 30.
thing. So all
I can say is
we may have to set up some kind of bet where you have to watch it, Danny, and report back.
In my defense, this does not work the same for George's defense. In my defense, I am a noob still when it comes to MMA. And so
pass that test.
I did, but I feel like going back in time is another level of stuff.
Back in time. I love that soundtrack, by the way. Back in the Future.
Bloodsport? Yeah, see.
All right, guys, coming up. Stand by.
Our producer's never seen it.
I like the new Cobra Kai.
That was cool.
That was really good. I thought they did.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Go. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We have controlled transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host. To my left, the fight analyst, Dan Tom. Back east, handling all the producing duties, Danny Otto, and our special co-host for the day. Watch this, I got it all memorized. He's the president of HCNet Fights, Simon Andrews.
Oh, wow. Now you guys going to show that photo from like 2008 where I was like 40 pounds heavier at an award show? And
no, that's my man right there. That's the CEO of AXS TV Fights, Andrew Simon.
There we go. Thank
What's
you
up?
so much, man. How you doing? Nice for you to join us today. We're really excited to see you here.
Got to make that entrance.
I'm telling you, man, this guy ran in right. It's like a pro. But my headset's a little off, so I can't hear everybody, but I'm going to say very wise things throughout this broadcast.
You can't hear us at all?
A little bit, a little crackle here and there, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm hearing him good on my end. You guys okay?
No, we're good. We'll make it work.
It might be his headset here.
Yeah, it might be the headset.
We'll make it work. This the audience doesn't want to hear this, George. So tell us what's going on.
Oh, not much, man. Not much. Had a great walk this morning with Max the JRT. Our dog's closing in on 15 years.
Wow.
So I got to keep him healthy and chugging along, and then I have to actually go to the cardiologist later on. But I'm anxious to start the weekend. How you been, Andrew?
I've been great. And, this second hour, there's no George. It's me and Goes. So we get to talk about George a little bit. We get to talk about the real issues of MMA in that second hour.
We're going to tweak things up a little bit.
We're going to mix it up. We're going to mix it up. New format in the second hour.
You guys coordinated. You guys going to talk Golden Knights later?
We're going to talk Golden Knights.
Yeah, this whole plan.
We're going to talk about Marshall Flory, why it's important to our city.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
It's unbelievable.
Have you seen a game outside yet? I've been wanting to do that.
You mean in the park?
Yeah,
I was talking about that with friends
cool.
for tonight. I just don't know if I want to stand out in 90-degree heat. That's my issue.
What time does it go?
It starts at 5 o'clock, so it's still going to be pretty
Why are they
warm.
doing that? Is that for television?
Yeah, it's TV. I mean, it's 8 o'clock Eastern on a Friday night. 11 p.m.
No, I know, but me growing up as a Lakers fan, it was always like a 7:30 p.m. tip-off, and the East Coast just had to deal with it. And the Lakers were on top for a long time, so it's not like the NBA ever got caught off guard. They always knew, hey, we better plan. But I guess 6 seems a little more appropriate, doesn't it?
Listen,
5's
we struggle with this on the fight side all the
say,
time on the West
people
Coast.
People are driving, right?
That's right. We start our fights, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern, and on the West Coast, sometimes we have to defer to 7 p.m. just because nobody will be in the crowd. To get people at 5 o'clock on a Friday in a big city like a Los Angeles, New York, Vegas, at least the traffic isn't so bad. Outside the arena, it'll be bad. But if you try to do a show in L.A. and go at 8 Eastern, you're trying to get people there at 5 p.m. Pacific time. It's almost impossible to get somewhere in L.A. at 5 o'clock on a Friday.
Fast forward to 5 years. In 2020, the Raiders are going to be here.
That's
this
right.
Is 2018, so that's 2. And then there's just the effect still of, I know there's a couple more hotels going up, but now the Vegas Golden Knights will be established. They will have gone back-to-back by then. Just kidding. And then what I'm getting at is I see a lot of stuff going up, man. How big is Vegas going to get before it's like too much? In fact, is it too much right now?
Is it too much? I don't think so. I think our city's never been better. Listen, we got our Knights gear on. You can't walk around the city with people high-fiving, talking to you. I lived here since 1992 on and off, and I've never seen this kind of enthusiasm in our city and the pride in our city with this hockey team. So I think it's unbelievable. And you bring the Raiders here, I can't imagine what kind of sports fans we're going to have here, what kind of pride in the city. Hopefully home values, go up for the people out here who've been here for a long time.
Yes,
all those pieces. I live out in Henderson, and just what they're building in St. Rose, if you take a look, they're building a Costco there. They're building the Raiders practice facility. They're building everything along St. Rose. Towards the M in that
Costco?
area. Yep, Costco will be there. The Raiders practice facility. It's just like you can't find an inch of real estate that's not going to be filled up over there fairly soon by the airport where Henderson Executive is. So you're seeing that kind of investment in our city right now like never before. On the casino side, we always saw it, but now you're seeing the infrastructure for locals and good times for all who live here. I don't think anybody's had more fun.
Traffic, crime, And how about, are they building enough schools? And are the kids getting some of this money? Can it go to the kid? I don't even have kids, but I realize it's important because there has to be a future.
Right.
We go through this cycle of, oh, that's your kid. Now he's dealing at the win. You know, like literally, we're 20 years older now, and I hear again that our state just isn't as strong when it comes to education and crime, and I think that's important too. And
I think we are probably off topic for an MMA show today, but I will say that those concerns you have
Costco is MMA, huh?
I tried to put the Raiders in sports.
To be fair, there are a lot of fights at Costco.
There are a lot of fights.
No, that's Walmart. You're thinking of Walmart.
Well, I will say all your concerns are valid, and the education in Nevada is not tops in the country. But on to UFC, Bellator, AXS TV Fights was having their 400th fight.
Show,
Apparently you got a package, it looks like, with a cool T-shirt talking about the 400th fight.
Yeah.
I mean,
14 years, 16 countries, 35 states, 35 promotions is a lot, but it's believable. But
yeah.
The other ones I can go, oh, yeah, we can figure these out pretty quick. Well, actually, 16 countries would be a challenge. 35 promotions would be a challenge.
And the 35 promotions is light.
Else.
It's closer to 45. So I think that whoever printed didn't exactly come to me beforehand, but I think it's 45 or 46 promotions total over the 14 years. So it's pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
If you just take a look, you just go to Japan, we almost work with 35 promotions. So,
Can I stump the boss here?
Yeah, go ahead.
What was the first... what was the first event on what was then HDNet Fight?
Sure, it was WEC 9 Cold-Blooded in January of 2004 with Mr. Reed Harris.
And goes.
That was going to be a trick question.
Lemoore, California.
Stump the co-host. Can you give me one of the two names that called the fights that night?
Ryan Bennett.
All right, give me the other name. That was maybe too easy. He unfortunately has something in common with Ryan Bennett. Maybe that helps.
Yeah, hold on. It was a fighter, wasn't it?
Not an MMA fighter.
I don't know then.
Jeff Blatnick, who also passed away.
Yeah, that's right. I was just listening to that the other day too.
Yeah, he also passed away. He's a UFC Hall of Famer, and he's a
wrestling.
Olympic caliber wrestler. Yeah, so combat sports athlete. That was the first one HDNet Fights. I was down in San Diego visiting Rodney's friend Chris when I all of a sudden looked and go, wow, that is crisp. Look at these. I was still a standard definition guy.
Yeah.
And I see this and I see how clear it is, and it was cool, but that channel was just not as big. How many homes was it in when it first started?
I started in 2007, and we were in 7 million homes at that point. So in 2004, maybe we were in 2 to 3 million with DirecTV.
So whatever was in San Diego, they had.
Yep. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
there
I have it on my phone, actually.
He has the fight on the phone, not from me. Yeah. I didn't send him.
And then the first ones that
doing the drop kick. I've never been able to delete this off my phone.
Then Olaf had his nose rearranged.
The Polish-sounding guy.
Yeah, that was a good fight. They went crazy. They went nuts. That was the first show.
Chris Levin and Mike Swick were on that card.
Yep. It was the first high-def TV broadcast of MMA in our country.
Yeah.
Nobody had done a high-def MMA broadcast. So, a little bit of history there, and obviously one of many promotions that we work with that was later acquired by the UFC over time. And, from the Strike Forces to the WECs to Affliction, we worked with pretty much every promotion.
World Victory Road, Dream, Pride,
K1 Max, MFC. You can go to
LFC, RFA, now LFA.
Shark Fights, CES MMA, Lion Fight. You could go to the other Florida promotion.
You guys own all the footage?
Fox and what's that?
You guys own all your footage?
We don't own all the footage, but we have rights to hundreds upon hundreds of fights. The promotions in the end own it. We own the IFL outright. We bought that library, our own fights, but we broadcast fights. The promotions are the owners typically of their fights, and we have broadcast rights for them depending on the deal.
So if they want to sell to just some TV station or some TV channel in China, they can?
It depends on the deal.
On the deal.
It depends on the deal. We have rights to broadcast, whether it's domestically or internationally, and some of them we own outright, some we don't. Some we have partial rights, as you'll see in the cage side broadcast tonight. Again, because I'm just going to promote like crazy today, but we have a 1-hour show tonight celebrating the 400 fights before the 400th next week. But that show will have clips from Yarenoko, where Fedor knocks out Hungman Choi. We have from Strikeforce at the Dome, where Jan Norche was fighting Bob Sapp. We have clips from everything from maybe Fedor and Gegard Mousasi doing, their exhibition on our network. We have Jason Mayhem Miller and
he did a few things.
Yeah, Tim Kennedy having their first thing
Miller
on our
Deweese.
Yeah, we have Deweese and Trigg.
That's when Guy Metzger had kind of your job, right?
Guy
He was
Metzger,
president, I guess.
Guy, when I started, Guy was president. I was CEO.
Oh,
and
okay.
we started this together, and I met Mark and Guy. God, it must have been in about 2000 and early 2007 out here in Vegas after a night they had at the Palms, and they were, I think that was in the basketball suite back then, and we're talking about what Mark wanted to do in MMA, and soon enough I was working for him in October 2007, and I think on my first official night, because I was still working for Cox Communications in Vegas, on my first official night, we did our first show at the American Airlines Center on October 15th, and then 2 months later we came back with that show with Tim Kennedy and Mayhem and Trigg and Deweese. Yeah. So that was our second show.
That's the night I met
Halloween DVD.
Yeah, the Halloween DVD giveaway.
Still wrapped up.
Yep. That was interesting at the time, making that deal to everybody got DVDs who came in to the arena that night.
We met Percy Crawford that night, and then I don't know if you got to, but I got to meet Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
He's tall.
Yeah,
I didn't know he was that tall. It's like 6'4", maybe?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think I met him.
Listen, we got to take a break because speaking of the 400 show, the headliner for LFA 40, Tan Lee, will be a guest of ours, and he's coming right up. So let's get this break out of the way. It's MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM Rush 93. Stay close. We'll be right back. We have Andrew Simon from AXS TV in the house.
Fast and the Furious for being too loud and too good looking. Once again, here's Gorgeous George and Goes.
Kentucky Derby winner Justified tries to capture the second jewel of the Triple Crown in Saturday's Preakness Stakes. SiriusXM's Rush 93's coverage starts Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern with Down the Stretch. Then at 5 p.m. Eastern, go live to Baltimore for coverage of the Preakness on Channel 93 and on the SiriusXM app. That same SiriusXM app houses the MMA Junkie radio show, commercial-free and in HD quality, so if you ever miss any show or part of a show, go back and check it out. We also have the Luke Thomas Show, Busted Open, At the Fights, MMA Tonight. I'm telling you, we bring it, we come strong when it comes to combat sports. Andrew Simon, the CEO of AXS TV Fights, is our guest co-host for the day. And aside from Tan Lee, we're also going to be talking to Macy Barber, who's a young up-and-coming, I guess we can still say prospect. I mean, she's making noise. She's 4-0. I'm hearing she may have some other plans here, Dana White Contender Series, or maybe future LFA. We'll get that from her. Roy Nelson, who headlines Bellator 200 next weekend, we'll catch up with him in the second hour, so it's going to be a fun show to finish out a fun week. Danny, give me an update on our guests. How are we looking?
Almost connected.
All right, almost connected. All right, Tan Lee will join us in just a second. And again, congratulations to the whole team, from Mark Cuban to Andrew Simon to everybody on down. The list could go on and on of all the different people that have put together quality programming on the channel, and not just fights on fight night, but for many years, of course, Inside MMA and all the different special programming you guys had. Awesome, man. Really, really, we thank you as not just media but fans, because it's been great. You've given so many people platforms, including Goz and I think what do we have, about 4 or 5 appearances on Inside MMA?
I think you had 5 and I had 4.
Yeah, so it was great,
grow,
man.
Really.
The channel's awesome.
No, we appreciate it. I mean, listen, we've invested in this sport for 14 years, and watching the success of the fighters and where some of them have gone, and also where different people behind the scenes, whether people worked in our truck and went on to ONE FC or UFC, and watching people who have had their first fight with us and now are UFC champions along the way. You watch people. Just this week, I got the Contender Series list of who's fighting there, and 31 fighters from AXS TV Fights will be fighting on the Contender Series.
Really?
That just
31?
Wow.
Yeah. It's a big number. So, you start taking a look where the prospects and where the fighters are coming from. They're coming from AXS TV Fights, and we love being able to give people,
Do you love it that much,
business.
though? That's a lot of talent that could be fighting on future.
It's a lot of talent, but they're not going to sign all those guys. There's no way they.
That's
UFC.
true. That's
so,
true.
So
Half
some
of
of
them
them
have to
will,
lose.
Yeah,
not half of them, but
it depends if they're fighting each
Yeah.
other. But we like to think the AXS TV fighters won't lose those fights, Goes. But we try to pick good talent, and
but even if you had 5 winners, there's a chance only one of them will move on, and then the other one will be looking for.
There's only so many people they can have under contract, and at the end of the day, I mean, people are getting their shot on our network and taking. You take a look at the fight with Tan Lee coming up and Aguilar. I can't imagine UFC won't be watching that fight closely. You got a guy 13-1 and a guy 8-1, both title holders in our main event.
Yeah, so they're unifying.
Yeah, they're unifying the title, and I just think it'll be. I'm sure the eyes of the world will be watching that one, because there aren't better prospects at the 145 weight class.
And guys, I don't want to be insensitive, but on the way on my Apple screen, something popped up about a shooting maybe in Texas. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah.
we had
a
one
school
here
over
yesterday, didn't we?
We had something at the Boulevard Mall where somebody carried a long gun, but he wasn't.
That turned out to be
nothing.
somebody
but just carrying.
I didn't hear about the new one.
Well, okay. So this is what I want to say. On May 25th, Tan Lee, who will be on with us here in about 30 seconds, versus Kevin Aguilar in the main event at the Bomb Factory in Dallas, Texas. And, the one thing I've noticed about our sport, it's very close to gun culture. He's how much ammo do you have? And, you have I don't know. They're not coming to me now, but I've noticed that in our sport there is a lot of
like references,
references
pull the
trigger, shooting from the hip, things like that. And there was something happening out there, and next week you guys will be out there. So, first of all, thoughts and prayers with everybody affected by this. But we're gonna move on here to our interview. But it's just something that I had the thought of, because us guys, we're kind of corny when we're doing our show, and sometimes we can jump and
Dan are okay
and crack jokes. Sorry, yeah. Goes keeps it together though. All right, Tan Lee, my man, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. Tonley, excuse me. All right, so you got Kevin Aguilar, and between the two of you, there's only 2 losses, and you guys have more than 20 wins. This is a quality main event with high stakes. Do you like people talking about the high stakes? You know what I mean, wink, wink, what could be next? I mean, you're unifying a belt, and of course, LFA is a launching pad to the big show. How you feeling about this? How much pressure are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. To be honest with you, my last, 4, 5, 6 fights have been all on the big stage with guys like Dana White, Sean Shelby watching, McMahon, things like that, televised, not televised, the Ultimate Fighter, things like that, Dana White's Contender series. So nothing too new to me about it. I'm just really excited to be able to up this title, unify the belts, be the featherweight champion for LFA, great organization. And then, obviously, the opportunity that brings to me, looking for a call-up. So if that happens, I'll be a little extra excited. It'll be perfect. Dream come true.
Exactly. You know what? You seem very calm, and I know we'll be talking many times in the future. But one thing that'll probably come up, and it probably has come up, is you're one of those where we can look back and go, he lost his first pro fight. And like Chris Cyborg, for example, or Renan Barão, great fighters. And then after that, it just all came together for you. I mean, we're looking at finishes everywhere. A submission, bunch of TKOs. What just happened in that one night against Robert Dunn?
My first pro fight, so that transition, I don't think, I was prepared for the pace, prepared for the 5-minute rounds. I spent my entire amateur career knocking people out in the first round, and I just had, I think my mentality in the wrong place. And that was immediately fixed. We went back to the drawing board, went there and made sure that we approached the game the right way. We approached the pace the right way. And, we go out there and we strategically just go in there, it'd be like a surgery, and just pick our guys apart. Do a lot of damage early, bring the fireworks, but do it in a smart way to where we are inflicting damage and not getting touched. So I think not really like a physical thing, but mostly mental and strategy-wise, immediately fixed. You saw that in my next fight, and obviously the fight's faster, so really excited about that.
Ton Lee, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He will be fighting Kevin Aguilar next week at LFA 40 in Dallas, Texas. It will be AXS TV's 400th show. I'm sure you're probably aware of that, Ton Lee, so there'll be a lot of eyeballs. I'm sure there'll be a lot of maybe Andrew can tell us here. The CES of AXS TV is here with us today. There'll be probably a lot of luminaries from your channel in attendance?
There sure will be. Hopefully a lot of people will be over there and taking a look. And, you got to give some respect to Mr. Lee over here that he took this fight. One thing that happens that we see a lot on the fight side, especially at AXS TV, guys like him who are 8-1 and Kevin who are 13-1, sometimes they avoid each other, as they get closer and closer to that UFC call-up and they want easier fights. And it's really frustrating from the promotion and TV side because we want to put on the best fights out there. And so a lot of respect to unifying the title and getting that spot on the 400th show. That's partially our appreciation for putting on such a good fight and that he would take a fight like that because this should be an awesome, awesome main event.
Yeah. Ton, man, we can't wait for this. Ton Lee, our guest here, 8-1 overall. He's a finisher. He's finished all 8 of his fights. Kevin Aguilar, 13-1. He's finished 10 of his. So I don't think this one's going to go to the judges, fellas.
No.
What do you have for Ton Lee?
Ton, in this sport it's difficult to amass a streak like that the way you have yours. And what's even more difficult is to get finishes in all of them. Not very many people can do that type of thing. Are you at the point where not only are the wins the streak, but also the finishes? Does that ever play in your head at all?
Honestly, no. I approach each fight the same way. It's really on the opponent whether I finish them or not, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit. Is, we're going in there, we're running our game plan, and we're continuing to inflict damage, continuing to implement our game plan. And if they decide to pick up the pace and lunge in and charge in, try to get the takedown, try to get the knockout, then they're creating even more of a collision with my strikes. So if he decided to run for 5 rounds, I'm picking him apart from leg range. If he decided to stand in the pocket and start swinging, planting his feet, that's when the collision starts to amplify a little bit and puts me in good position to land harder strikes. So, I'm not going out there trying to spring at anybody and lunging in with these like Cro Cop style punches to get the knockout. But the way we fight, the way we approach, our distancing and our range, it's really hard for guys to beat me up at that leg range. and at that extended arm range, so they're going to have to step in. And when they step in, that's when the knockouts happen. And I've fought nothing but really tough competitors that are trying to win. None of these guys are just sitting back and saying, you know what, I really don't want to get knocked out, so I'm just going to sit back for 5 rounds and get touched up, and at least I didn't get knocked out. These guys are going out there trying to get the win. They're stepping in, trying to swing. And, you know, it just happened to work out in my favor with these fights. And I think it's going to continue for a long while.
How much of these finishes can you attribute to watching video and maybe saying, this is a combination that I saw before the fight even happened versus this is an adjustment I made during the fight?
Honestly, 0. I would say all of them kind of came during the fight. You know, like, obviously we strategize about things like using long legs, using straight type attacks, using hooking and round type attacks just based on movement. But honestly, like in the last fight, that straight left with Bobby, he took a couple of punches, but he is a tough dude, didn't go to sleep, stood up back on his feet and started marching forward. And, you know, kind of to my previous point is he amplified that collision by starting to come in and made a little bit of contact with the cross and a couple of jabs. So he's really getting a little confident in his hand and caused that collision to happen. But that wasn't like a game plan type thing. That was, you know, he started to come in, he started to drive in a little more, so that was the quickest resource at the time, and it kind of just came on a, you know, ad lib, I guess you could say. But, you know, that's kind of how my striking works, is we're just reading the opponent, seeing what opportunities are opening up, what is he selling out on defensive-wise, and what is that leaving open. And then, obviously, building on that and continuing to progress with my progressions and high-low, body, head, all those types of things.
Man, this guy doesn't sound like a knucklehead at all. You sound like a scientist breaking everything down. I'm loving it. All right, and Andrew, can you confirm, will Mark Cuban be there? I thought I heard that rumor.
Oh, I can't confirm his schedule. I don't know if he knows his own schedule that day. He usually you know, he uses a plane like we use a car, so sometimes he just he flies somewhere and has to go be somewhere. You know, I think he has 100x businesses at this point.
In his backyard, as long as he has something going on, if you know what I mean. I don't want to say it, but there's a certain team that's out of the playoffs.
Well, you know, without the Mavericks there, I'm not sure how much he's, you know, again, I know Shark Tank starts shooting in June. So I know he'll be back in LA, but I just don't know his schedule. I mean, I did, you know, obviously he was invited, and I think he was kind of, you know, it all depends on his schedule. If he's there in town, I'm sure he'll be there. If he's not, you know, his schedule changes within minutes.
It's going to be a great night, the 400 show at LFA 40, and it stars Thanh Le versus Kevin Aguilar in the main event. 22 wins between both of them. We have 18 finishes between both of them, only 2 losses between both of them, and they're unifying the featherweight title. Thanh is the interim champ, Aguilar's the incumbent. Doors open at 6:30 at the Bomb Factory, and if you go to factorydallas.com, you can get your tickets there. 9 p.m. Eastern Start Time, 6 p.m. Pacific on AXS TV. It's channel 340 if you have DirecTV. Otherwise, check your cable and satellite listings. Thanh, how does this fight end? How do you get the job done on May 25th?
We go out there, we set our feet, we set a good pace, and we're going to finish Kevin. That's what's going to happen.
That's what's up. All right. Hey, thank you very much for the time. We really appreciate it. And cannot wait to see you throw down versus Kevin at the 400 show, LFA 40.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it, man.
All right, we'll see you. All right, that is Thanh Le. Follow him on Twitter at Thanh Le MMA. Thank you to Oren Hodak for making that one happen. Go ahead and give Oren a shout out.
Hello, Oren.
And Oren used to work for HDNet back in the day.
Did he? What did he do?
You guys need that. You know, when we were doing our own fights, I think he did a little bit on ticket sales and sponsorship.
Okay.
Back 2007 or 8.
You want to see who can name more HDNet AXS TV employees before we run out?
Please. People won't care that much about the employees.
Yeah. No,
maybe
just,
the promotions or fighters.
The big names.
How about champions?
No, not fighters. Not fighters. Just
all right.
Boss Rudin.
Marwin,
Kenny Rice.
Guy Mesker.
Michael Chavello.
Ron Kruk.
Bo, and his last name starts with a V.
You can't do that.
But he's like an employee. He had, yeah.
Well, but you got to have the name.
Guys that we worked with, I said. Bo Vaskugan or something like that?
That's pretty close.
I could just
you got to give him that. That's
John?
pretty close.
Is
It's
John
like Von
still there?
Skoon. Viskuken's pretty close.
Okay, yeah, he gave it to
That's
me.
pretty
All
close.
right.
I'll let that go.
Okay. I am going to go with, for my next one, Pat Miletich.
Okay. Sean Graben, right?
Yeah, close.
Yeah, PR. All right. Andrew Simon.
Mark Cuban.
Fuck.
You tap out?
Tap out.
I guess I just add Ryan Bennett, but I knew you would have said Jeff Blatnick. I was even trying to remember the young lady that put the makeup on us over there.
About the master of trigonomics, you guys.
Trigonomics.
I didn't,
I was thinking
didn't he
about
start
tag
that,
radio with you guys?
That counted. Or
I mean,
of course he did. He had some time with
him. He
him.
was on the network.
I was going to say like JR, but I didn't know if we're doing pro wrestling too.
That would count, yeah. But
so
then that cancels out by Josh Barnett. And then, of course, close to everybody, Daryl Ewald. What a great guy, man.
Yeah.
Just prior to him passing away, he was sitting right there, and I think it was one of our last spots.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's wild.
Such a great team you have, and I'm sure there's hundreds of others that put it together. Andrew actually allowed me to go into the truck. We were out in the OC, and we were watching fights, and so we were still a few fights away from the feature, the co-main and the main. And he was wandering around. He goes, "Hey, you want to take a look at the truck?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's go in there." So Big Ralph came in there with me, and we opened it up. And I'm telling you, as soon as you step in, like you wouldn't believe what you're seeing and how many people it takes to get that bad boy going.
To command.
We just think that it's the announcers, the cameraman, and then, like I said, the makeup lady, and maybe a couple other people holding the cords. But dude, it was probably 20 or 30 people in there.
Oh yeah, at least.
It's like a command center.
Yeah. I mean,
and I joked to Ralph, I go, "What is this, NASA?" Like I thought we were gonna watch a rocket take off. Like they had everything they needed to probably launch a rocket if they wanted to.
Interesting fact.
Super cool.
Interesting fact. Some of the early programming on HDNet. We were hired by NASA, and we were the first to do the space shuttle launches because we were the only HD television network out there. So we were brought in to shoot all the shuttle launches in the early days because we were the only ones who could shoot in HD. Plus, Daryl Ewald, who you mentioned, did the Olympics.
Yes.
Was the first to really do the Olympics in high def, and it was on because we were the only ones that did HD back then. So again, Mark Cuban was real early on the HD side, and thus, the non-confusing name of our network back then, HD Net, for HD Network, because we were the only HD network at the time. So
yeah, man, it was really, really cool. I dig it a lot, and if you ever get a chance and you're still friends with Andrew, take that little tour.
He showed us. I don't know if
you
it's the
saw
same
one?
Yeah, but it was in Vegas when they did. What's the place by the D outside?
Oh well, we did
Las
Fremont
Vegas
Street
Event Center?
Experience.
Yeah,
Fremont
it actually
Street.
looks.
For-
it looks a
for
lot
a
like
lion fight,
for Cyborg fight. Yeah.
when you go to when you go inside MMA, that room before in the hallway,
Yeah,
it almost
yeah.
looks like that, but just in a truck.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's back in the LA office. Yep. We, again, that truck gets millions of miles. We drive that thing back and forth and all over the country. It'll go from Texas to Rhode Island to
I've seen it on
California.
the strip.
Oh yeah, it will go everywhere with it.
It was pretty cool because Daryl was still with us and he was in charge, and so to hear them all talk about what camera to go to, what replay to go to, and see the seamless communication, because someone has to find that quick replay and set it up and have it queued up and pass it on, and then that gets passed on to the announcers. So Goz and I have done our fair share of broadcasting,
sure,
but never at that level. We did always have like a voice, but to see that, it was like, wow, that'd be cool to.
It's like the Truman Show, but on wheels.
So when you say voice, I was listening to Chevello early this morning too from Asia, a Little One Championship, and their new app. So I was taking a look at that this morning, and it seemed pretty smooth. I was getting ready to come here, so I didn't get to watch all the fights, but got to see a little Yats and Clive Fairtex and
nice.
a little of their fights this morning. I thought it looked pretty smooth.
Do you know who won between Yamaguchi and Lee?
Lee was winning when I was watching. I didn't catch the,
Okay.
I drove over here right when they were hitting the fourth round.
Okay.
But
Just curious.
yeah.
I can probably look it up.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Macy Barber, another one of the up-and-comers in our sport. She's undefeated 4-0, and she's just coming off a win at LFA 39. So stay close. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM Rush 93 with Andrew Simon from AXS TV in the house.
compassion, common sense. These guys have none of that. You listen to them, so you're no better. I am awesome, though. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Tune in to NBA Radio, Sirius 207, XM86, and listen for the hourly cue to call for your chance to win airfare, hotel accommodations, and 2 tickets to Game 4 of the NBA Finals. For official rules and details, go to SiriusXM.com/SiriusXM. It's NBA Radio, and do that before May 22nd. All right, so, you know, I really like the theme of today's shows. We are talking about, we have Andrew Simon here from AXS TV. He's their CEO. We just had Tan Lee, who will be headlining LFA 40, and we have our next guest, Macy Barber, who fought at LFA 39. But these men and women are the future. Vitor Belfort put his gloves down this past Saturday, and the guy that beat him's 39, and the guy he called out is a guy in Michael Bisping, who now we're hearing may have just already retired the Gastelum fight last November. So we got to start looking forward to who are going to be the new stars. They're calling this young lady the future. We can't even have her in studio, Goes, because she's not
soon. She's
not 21 years of age, but guess what she is today? 20 years of age. So let's get her on. Macy Barber, first of all, welcome to MMA Junkie Radio. Second of all, happy birthday.
Thank you, and thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. What are you doing for your birthday?
Not much. We're just training. I got up this morning and I trained from 6:30 to 7:30 doing MMA and striking, and then I had strength and conditioning, and now I'm at wrestling.
Yeah, but when that's all over, the friends and family going to take you somewhere?
We're actually driving to Utah tonight to go train with my coach, Matt Pena. So
that's what everybody does.
We
can't. Right? You know, morning practice after, and then drive to Utah on your wild 20th birthday. You know, that's crazy, crazy.
That's dedication. All right. Well, again, happy birthday, and enjoy the training, and hopefully at some point you can let your hair down, celebrate. But I guess right now you're technically in a fight camp, right?
I have a countdown on my phone, but I think it says 8 days. 8 weeks, and then like 4 days, and then it counts hours, minutes, and seconds. So yeah,
so
we got a countdown going.
I introduced you as a winner coming off LFA, where you had all your fights, 39. But now I'm hearing it could be Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. That will be your next fight. Is that something you can confirm?
Yeah, I can confirm that now. I got the contract, and I've just been doing all my medicals and stuff. And yeah, it's July 17th against Jamie Colleen for the Contender Series.
So take me through this, all right? Because I'm not doubting that you can't win that night, but let's say you do, but you're not chosen. Do you have the type of contract where you can revert back to LFA, or are you a free agent? And how does that conversation, like, are you a free agent every fight, or did you have a special pact with LFA, being that you fought with them for these 4 fights of your professional career?
Well, I had a contract with LFA that was an open contract, so if I was to sign with a bigger promotion, UFC or Bellator, that was possible. For this fight, so I technically have 1 fight left on my LFA contract that if I don't get picked up, I can actually go back and I would be fighting for the title, the 115 title for LFA in my next fight for them. But
all right,
yeah,
all right, Macy Barber.
That would be my backup plan. But I'm planning on getting a contract.
Macy Barber, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. She will be fighting at Dana White Contender Series, Tuesday Night Contender Series. Excuse me. They're starting their 2nd season here this summer. She says the countdown is 8 weeks away. She's 4-0 with 3 finishes, 1 by KO and 2 submissions. Who gave you the nickname The Future, Macy?
It kind of was just something that my whole family and I came up with. We went through a bunch of different ones, and that one kind of just stuck.
Hey, at some point in time, did somebody go?
Person, it just kind of stuck. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're the guest.
Yeah, I was just saying it just kind of stuck that we decided that was going to be it. And it's fun to write on the paper, too.
No, it looks cool. I'm staring at the T-shirt, so it looks like you've already had some stuff printed out. I mean, it's more of a tank top, I should say. But I wanted to ask, and I'm not trying to start S, but was it one of those where somebody brought up, like, a Ronda name or someone else, and somebody goes, oh, that's old news, I'm the future? Like, was it something like that with a little swag, or?
No, I honestly couldn't tell you, like, the exact moment. It was just kind of, like, gradual, and then once we decided, we're like, yeah, that's a good one, because, you know, I'm young, and there's only the future that can come, you know? I mean, it's not like there's there's so much room to grow. So I just feel like it fits me perfectly.
You guys think I should get a T-shirt that says the past?
No, be the present.
Be the president?
Yeah, be the president.
But you're more the president. You're 9 years younger than I am.
Make it okay. I'll be the president, and then I'll have like a bow, so it could be.
How about recent past?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Let me turn it over to the guys. Goes, what do you have for Macy Barber?
Macy, I'm trying to think what I was like at your age, and with the
You were a
anticipation.
dork, Goes. I remember.
Thank you, George.
All right.
What I was thinking was, the anticipation of finding out this big news, and now you got to wait about 8 weeks before you can get in there and finally live part of this dream. What is it like? I mean, how have you been sitting back just... it seems like you got yourself calm, cool, and collected. You just went over your training schedule. I can't even believe it's not even midday yet, and you've done all these things. What is this period like for you?
I'm just trying to enjoy the process. I've always, if you try to go through and plan that 8th week, you're going to be overwhelmed. But I just try to take it one day at a time, and I plan out each one of my days. My mom makes fun of me. She's like, you plan out your week every single day. Like, I'll plan every day, the day before, and I replan and replan and replan, and I just try to take it one day at a time because I overwhelm myself. But yeah, I mean, we're exactly where I want to be at this point in my career, so I'm happy.
4 fights in, have you found, or are you close to that recipe that you feel comfortable with, or has it been changing from fight to fight?
Oh, I mean, we've been evolving every fight, and I'm never going to be content with, I'm content with where I'm at in my life, but I'm never going to be like, okay, we're good, we're where I want to be, I'm happy where I am, but at the same time, there's those goals that I've got, and every single day, you got to work towards it, and there's always going to be that I can get better, or I could be better, or, we're going to get better at this. So yeah, I'm content, but I'm always trying to push to get to that next spot.
Unlike my host here, I am not going to just let you get away with you're not doing anything for your birthday. So here's what I want to know. Is there at least an Amazon wish list? Is there a list of things you want for your birthday?
My mom and my dad have been asking me this. Actually, all my family. They're like, what do you want for your birthday? And actually, I'm trying... I want to get a puppy. I've been deciding on a dog, and I already have the name picked out, and I found one, and I was going to get it, but the breeder didn't work out yet, so I'm still working on that. So if anyone knows where to get an Alaskan Kweeklai, that's what I want for my birthday.
Hang on a second, though. You sound very driven, like, for being 20 years old, like, more professional sounding than other fighters we've had on the show. And remember, the dog's a responsibility. Are you going to be like Paris Hilton? You're going to be taking the dog everywhere with you, or would you have to find like a babysitter for the dog when you're traveling to Utah and back and forth? Because that it's a little more complicated.
I know, we talked about this. I live with my family, so there's 7 of us in the house, and
okay.
I have two teenage brothers, and my mom's like, well, if you're gonna get a dog, you gotta get a puppy because I wanted the puppy, So they're gonna definitely help me out, but it's gonna be a dog that I can train with because I want something to run with me and hike and not quite be doing everything alone.
Take your brothers.
But yeah, I definitely have my family that can help me out with that.
What's the name you picked out?
Tomahawk.
Tomahawk.
I know, it's kind of like it's my favorite kind of striking. It's an elbow actually, and I gave the whole explanation to my coach today. I was like, so when I get my dog, I'm going to name it Tomahawk, and its nickname is going to be Tommy, and it's going to be great.
I like it. Andrew. Yes. I mean, we're talking to two very, very composed and calm fighters, and I'm really digging the future, and you guys have some nice gems that you find over there at LFA.
Well, that's what we do at AXS TV. Obviously, we find, the future. But, Macy, why don't you kind of go back a little bit and tell people, at 20, obviously you're so composed and have this under control. You've been in front of TV almost on every fight you've had. But how did you get started? Like, what brought you into this? Was it watching a Ronda Rousey, a Gina Carano? What brought you to MMA at such a young age? And, watching fighters today, I've been doing this for 15 years. You take a look at the level of fighters at age 20 to where, the Chuck Liddells and others were. It's just such a different, vast knowledge that the fighters have today at such a young age. So how did you get started, and what brought you to MMA to begin with?
Well, I started training in karate, like just normal as every like little kid does. Their parents put them in karate, and that's what I did at the age of 3. And I learned a ton of forms and self-defense techniques and all sorts of different things, and that's where you learn your foundation. And then from there, in 2009 or 2010, we decided to open up our own gym, my dad and a couple of business partners, and I was, I think I was like 13. I don't know how old I was. I'm not going to do my math. But we opened up our gym, and we started doing jiu-jitsu, and from there, I started competing in jiu-jitsu competitions, and then once I turned about 13 or 14, I was like, well, you know, I'm competing in jiu-jitsu, and to me, I mean, I've grown up in a competitive family, and, you know, when I was competing in jiu-jitsu, I looked at it like, yes, this is great, but I want to do something where I can make money at it, I can be happy, I can be fit, I can be, you know, I can grow and I can get to the next level, and I don't have to have 2 different things I'm focusing on. So MMA is that, you know, I can fight, I can make money at it, and I can be successful. So that's when I was like, I want to fight, and I want to be competitive at this. And from there, we just started training, and my dad and my mom got me around the best people they possibly can, because, you know, they tell me all the time, they're like, so when you told us you wanted to fight, we were like, there's no chance that we're going to let our daughter get punched in the head and you know, and take damage. So they're like, we have to find the best people possible to put you with, so that you're going to not take damage, and you're going to give damage, and you're going to have success with this, because the last thing you want to do is go in there and be just another fighter that gets beat up and then is not able to be a mom, you know, and that's another thing that I want to do, is I want to have a family, and I want to have kids, and I want to be able to be alive for them. So and they told me that, and they knew that right away. So they put me around the best people, and, you know, we've always been trying to find the best coaches in the world, and we're slowly getting to every single one of them. You know, every piece is coming together, but so yeah, we've just been training, and then I turned 18, and I made my amateur debut in like halfway through my 18th year, and then another 6 months went by because we couldn't get another amateur fight, so we decided to turn pro, and that's when LFA and AXS TV took a big jump and took a big leap of faith in me, and I'm so grateful for that, because, you know, I knew where I was at, and my family knew where I was at, and my coaches knew where I was at, but, you know, for a 18-year-old girl or I guess I was 19 at the time, 19-year-old girl to come in and have one amateur fight and no TV time, no anything like that, and for you guys to just be like, all right, let's take a risk, you know. And so they did, and I performed, and I was happy, and then from that I had 4 fights in my 19th year, which was a great year, and then, yeah, now here we are.
Good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the story there.
Sorry, that was kind of long.
Good to hear. No, good to hear.
Really long.
And I can really appreciate the support system. Sounds like your family's really, really tight-knit, and them looking out for your safety and health, and you being able to tie it into a business. That's incredible. Good stuff, Macy. Hey, I hope you have a safe camp. I hope you have a nice birthday, and hopefully we can talk to you fight week right before your fight, Dana White Contender Series, Tuesday Night Contender Series,
for sure,
coming up here this summer. But thank you very much for the time today on MMA Junkie Radio Show.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Folks, follow her on Twitter at Maycee Barber, MAYCEE BARBER. Sorry, Barber, yeah. Let's do the daily debate. We have to do it quick today, guys, all right? Because I have to get going here for the second hour, and I'm sure you want me to be a part of it, right?
Sure.
All right, ultra fast. The daily debate. Or do you want to do it in the second hour? It's up to you.
Whatever. I don't know if we'd have to be the world's fastest one.
I think it's too late. I think it's too late.
I think it is too.
Yeah. We don't want to cut it too close. So I have to get going here for the second hour. It goes. We'll move over to the con. And who's going to be the XO? Dan or Andrew? Have you decided? If you're now the captain.
Well, Andrew's the guest, though.
Okay.
So Andrew's like that colonel that came on, or I guess in this, what would he be, like a guest admiral that's staying on the sub?
Can I just be everybody's favorite uncle? That's a
probably could have had the debate by now. What are we
We
talking about?
we could have had the debate. Yeah.
How do you know this isn't the debate, Andrew?
This is the debate.
People didn't vote on this.
You know what I'm going to do? Hang on to the debate. I want to call in. I want to chime in on this. I can do it via the phone, right? As I'm driving to the doctor, I want to chime in because this was an awesome question. Kudos to you, Dan, or Goes. I think maybe you pitched it earlier in the week, or maybe both of you did. But there is some great answers here, and I want to hear what you guys have to say, so I'll be listening as I head that way. And I'm going to see if I can call in, and maybe Danny can patch me, and I can give my answer.
Better not be by Mountain's Edge. You have really bad cell service over there. I hate talking to you when you're over there. It's like I hear every third word.
Yeah, sorry about that. Orlando from Connecticut and Marco from Waco, you guys can start off the second hour. Goes will be over here at the con, and I got to get going. So you'll be in some good hands, but we'll be back. That's 1 hour down, 1 hour to go on the MMA Junkie Radio Show. And don't forget, Roy Nelson also headed your way to cap off a great week here on the MMA Junkie Radio Show. So stay close. We'll be right back.
Today is Block Friday. We picked 2 artists. First one, Stone Temple Pilots, and Danny, who's the one for the second hour?
Everybody's going to have to wait and find out. That's what we call a tease.
I appreciated that Stone Temple Pilots. I think Sour Girl or something was earlier. I haven't heard that in years. That was a good one.
I think they were on your network once, weren't they?
Yes.
Did you do a concert once?
Of course.
And then that's actually, I think, how I came up with it this morning. Because I was thinking, what are some of the ones that I've seen on your network? And I know Linkin Park was another. And when the lead singer, I think his name is Scott Weiland of Stone Temple Pilots, passed away, the lead singer of Linkin Park took over for them. And then he passed away. So
it has nothing to do with AXS TV. It's not a jinx on the MMA or on the concert side.
But that voice, of course, is Andrew Simon. He is the CEO of AXS TV, and we're going to dive a little bit more into him in a little bit here in the second hour. We got some callers on the line, so why don't we get them out of the way. I know Orlando from Connecticut, I believe, has been waiting the longest. Danny, can you patch Orlando in?
Yo, what's up? You guys there?
How you doing, Orlando? What's up?
Hey, what's going on? So, I got a question for you guys to think about, and then I also want to let you guys know. Remember, I was supposed to go to the Brooklyn card. Ended up going to my son's boxing. My son won fight of the night that night, so very proud. I missed the fight. I was super stoked about that. But my question for you guys is, so you know how with the ESPN deal and the UFC and all this, there's rumors that they're going from 12 pay-per-views to 6 or maybe 9. With the reduction in pay-per-views, more than likely the cost of the pay-per-views are going to go up. I would assume between $100 and $120. Do you guys think the fans are going to pay that? And what are you guys' feelings if that were to happen? Because I believe, being in the industry myself, that's probably going to happen. So I'm going to let you guys simmer down on that. Thank you for taking my call. Hope you guys have a good day.
Thanks, Orlando. First of all, it is not going up that high. I mean, I don't even know if people would pay for the Super Bowl that high. I mean, that price is way over.
I think he has that a little bit wrong. I don't think,
that's over Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
Even over that.
I don't think that's happening. I think you're definitely seeing some change on the TV side, and clearly that ESPN Plus deal with the 15 fights and the $150 million deal is one piece of it, and adding Dana's series there. But I think UFC is still figuring out where they put their main content, and they may take their time. I mean, NBC has been talked about, Fox has been talked about, but they can also bide their time and use their own Fight Pass OTT network until they find the deal they want. If they want to put their own shows there, how many people would sign up for $10 a month to get all those Fox shows and Fox Sports shows if they put them on Fight Pass in the short term till they find that mega TV deal they want? So there's lots of different options that they have, and clearly with the WWE deal that's being talked about for Monday Night Raw and the UFC deal with what they got $150 million not for their A show, we know there's a lot of money to be had for UFC right now on the deals.
Pay-per-view is, for the longest time, has been their big money grab. So for them to drastically, I think he said 12 to 6 or something, I don't see that happening.
No, the landscape's changed. I mean, if you take a look at it, the money right now is on the television deal versus the pay-per-view side. So there's a big seismic shift in where their revenue is going to come from. Pay-per-view is still great, but I think you're seeing more and more people need to have a reason to buy a pay-per-view versus like this last weekend in Brazil. I don't expect that show did too well. Just because, you need a pay-per-view star, and that's why Conor McGregor seems to be getting a pass for what he did, where no other person could ever get a pass for what they would. If they did something 1/100th of the infraction, they'd be let go. But Conor can bring in that kind of money to pay off debt service, and sometimes you overlook things, if you're running a promotion like that.
The more and more that the more cards you do per year, the more and more these pay-per-views are going to start to get watered down.
Yep. Right.
Especially with the injuries, right? Like how often do we get a card, and does that card actually stay intact by the time you get it? If I were a fan today, I mean, it'd be rough for me to buy my tickets 2 months ahead of time or when they announce the card. I'm probably one of those guys that would buy it night of, maybe a couple days before. I mean, even the weigh-ins, you can't even feel great. Before, you would say, all we need is for them to weigh in, and then we'll pull the trigger. Now you can't even do that.
No, I mean, the cards change so quickly. I mean, even in our shows, we see, we used to do features on the main event and co-main event of every fight on HDNet back in the day and AXS TV, and we'd send cameras to their hometown, shoot for the week with their family, the training, and we were losing. Of those 4 fighters, we'd lose 1 or 2 every show. And, you know, we're not a huge network, and you start talking about, well, that costs $4 grand, $5 grand for each feature. You're losing 10 grand a week on 2 features. Multiply that 40 times a year, 400 grand. It starts adding up to mega money to shoot those features, because you are losing so many people if you shoot those way in advance, to your point.
You know what? That's interesting, because we brought that up on the show. How many times have we said they need to start focusing more on the fighters and give that backstory? I mean, that's probably the reason why that doesn't happen.
No, that's why you see a little shadow boxing in front of the green screen and then a little talk over, because now they're there in fight week, and you're like, okay, we can do it. If you try to do it a month or 2 out, inevitably you lose that fighter almost every time.
Marco from Waco is on hold, but here's what we're going to do. Dan, did you want to finish up?
Oh, no, you guys go ahead.
Why don't we jump over to the daily debate, only because Gorgeous George loved this question so much that he got in his car and he wants to be a part of it. So we're going to bring George on really quick here. We'll do the daily debate, and then we'll really, I promised you, Andrew, we will really get rid of him. Okay?
All right, let's get rid of George.
So today's daily debate at MMA Junkie Radio. Here's the question. Which high-profile free agent has made the most noise since moving to Bellator? Is it Ryan Bader, Roy McDonald, Matt Mitrione, or Chael Sonnen? Dan, you want to go first?
This is a tough one. I feel like it's a loaded question, so I am going to take the loaded answer, perhaps even the safe answer, because my answer, not just so much as a fighter, since it didn't specify as splash, I'm going to clarify that as maybe or define that as maybe attention, and I'm going to go Chael Sonnen. He did very well. I think more well than people projected in the heavyweight Grand Prix as one of the smaller guys, but more importantly, not just backing up the talk like Chael Sonnen does. He's actually bringing the talk as far as analysis, doing quite well at the desk or cage side. Wherever they put him, he seems to be shining. I think you're going to get a lot of miles out of Chael Sonnen one way or another. That's my answer here.
Andrew, you want to take a stab at this?
Well, when you talk about noise, obviously Chael makes a lot of noise, but that's not who I'm going to go with on this one. Chael can talk, but I think if you have to take a look with what Ryan Bader did this past weekend, I think he made himself to be the favorite in the tournament right now, and the guy to beat. You know, when you take a look at how he took out King Mo with hands, and we know King Mo trained at Mayweather's gym over here, and that he has good hands, and it was just a fast fight, and he came out without a mark that quickly, and I think he made the most noise and the ability to move on in that tournament.
You know, when they talk about any organization, even in boxing, we always point to the baddest man on the planet is always a heavyweight. So I'm going to go with a heavyweight. I'm going to go with Matt Mitrione. 4 wins. He's undefeated in Bellator. He's making a splash, you would say, over one guy, Fedor Emelianenko. A lot of people considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. I would say if I had to pick a run, I would pick something like that. So for me, it's going to be Matt Mitrione. I can't believe all 3 of us picked different guys. Gorgeous George, are you going to come up with the 4th one? Who do you have?
Well, Goes, nice strategy as the host filling in to go with your best batter in the cleanup position, so thank you for that. Let me say something. You all bring up some good points, and I would agree with Chael because you do double dip there as broadcaster fighter, except he got smoked by Tito Ortiz, and I'm kind of holding it against him. He didn't look good that night, all right? Matt Mitrione's solid as well, Goes. You make a great point. Heavyweights are what it's all about for many promotions, and it could be that this guy winds up being the champion. But right now, Ryan Bader is a champion. He's a champion in the light heavyweight division, and he had a great showing in the quarterfinal round of that Grand Prix. So right now, I'm actually going to go with Ryan Bader, not to complete the cycle there that we all did, but I really feel like right now you have your champion, and you have a guy that's doing well at heavyweight. He just took out King Mo. He took out Phil Davis, so he's really been tested there, you know, while he's been with Bellator. Rory's champion, but I feel like he's only just had that one fight, and I don't think there's enough there. I think Bader gets him. Now, if Mitrione were to get a couple wins, and take home the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix, he'd be a champion, and that fight over Fedor would be pretty epic. Then ask me that question at the end of the year, and I might give you an answer. But for me, it's Ryan Bader.
Well, there you have it. The fans have spoken. They said 35% went to Ryan Bader, 8% went to Matt Mitrione, 20% went to Chael Sonnen. In the end, 37%. This might have been our closest race ever. Went to Rory McDonald. That's today's daily debate. We're the MMA Junkie Radio crew. Gorgeous George, what are you going to do? Are you out?
Yeah, I'll be listening here as I drive to the doctors, and I hope you guys have a great show. Thanks for including me.
Anytime. Kind of had to, right? Like,
Easy,
yeah, you had to let him go.
Himself,
a little too much excitement for him. You go to the cardiologist this morning, so hopefully George does
George
okay.
is still connected, by the way.
Oh, still, yeah.
Sorry,
George.
Sorry, it's
really
nice.
Miss you.
Nice been having you. Nice, and no more HIPAA laws and any medical information on air. I don't know what USA Today has for that, but we won't discuss his medical condition.
You guys are a comedy show in the making. I can't wait to get tickets.
There you go. All
right, run along, George. All right, so really quick before we get started with all of this, we just want to send out a special thanks to Jason Vaughn. He sent us out some gear, some T-shirts. You can see this one's hanging here in the back. Dan Tom has his, and they say 400 fights, AXS TV, your home for MMA. 14 years, 16 countries, 35 states, 35 promotions. 2,500 fights. That's amazing, man.
We've been really all over the world, man. We travel. I used to travel a lot more than I do today. Thankfully,
Japan trips.
Those Japan. I was going every month, once or twice a month to Japan, and going to Europe, and we were all over the globe for a while. Now we're a little bit more, make America great, USA only with our fights. But we definitely had that global perspective for a long time when MMA was expanding around the globe.
You know, I asked this of a guest earlier in the program, and I kind of wanted to ask the same of you. It's like, in that amount of time, how long did it really take you to find that correct recipe for what you do, where it just almost, it's just the ball that keeps rolling? Like,
we were doing this, since 2004. I came on in 2007, and to start, we were promoting a little bit on top of, licensing fights. So we had our 2 fights in Dallas in 2007, but we also had that show from New Year's with Hungman Choi and Fedor Emelianenko on New Year's Eve. So we were kind of mixing and figuring out whether we were going to be a promoter or whether we were going to be a broadcaster. And that changed over time to really be a broadcaster. And then from my perspective, we took a look around the globe and had K1 and K1 Max. It's Showtime, Glory. We tried kickboxing. We tried MMA. We've tried Muay Thai. We were always trying to find if there's something else that the fans would have liked to have seen. And I personally loved the stand-up game and enjoyed K1 back then, and those Grand Prix were awesome. And to bring those spectacles from Japan to the U.S. viewers really meant a lot to me because I loved watching those. But then over time we found more people like to see fights live from the U.S. on a Friday night than necessarily overnight fights and in the middle of the night, and was live important when you were on at 2 in the morning from Japan. So we really focused on the promotions in the future, which is what LFA and CES do for us today.
The other day we were talking about why mixed martial arts fans are so passionate when it comes to the sport. In any other sport, maybe baseball a little bit more, but if somebody tests positive for something, it kind of gets forgotten about a couple days later. Or if there's a fight or something, people just forget and they move on. In this sport, the fans hammer you just constantly. And what I was trying to say was, when we were born, our parents would, or our fathers would tell us stories about football, baseball, where they were for the World Series and this and that. We didn't have that with the sport because a lot of people felt like they helped that, they watched that sport grow. It felt like they were a part of it. You are one of those people where you could say you had a big hand in helping the sport grow. So with that said, like, is it difficult to make decisions, take chances, and all that? Like, what does that feel for you when things go down? What are your opinions? Like, you're on social media, but you're not out there fighting the way some of the other guys are in your position.
No, I don't worry that much what everybody else is saying as much on social media and spending as much time. I'm out there trying to make sure people know we're doing what we do, make sure that people tune in. But watching the evolution of the sport, like when I take a look today, even with like Macy saying that, at age 10 or 11, her parents opened their own gym and she's been training. You find kids who are training. I know Mick Maynard over at the UFC and with LFA, his kids, since they were 3 or 4, Colt and all them have been training in jiu-jitsu and competing. And Guy Mesger's kids, these kids and Jax, when we have Roy Nelson on, Jax is a monster. And I don't even know if he's 3 or 4 years old now, maybe 3 years old, but Jax can punch, man. He can throw. So you start taking a look, and these kids that will be, when they come to be 18 and try to fight, they're going to have been training for 15 years. Whereas when we first came in the sport, you had guys, like a Randy Couture who started maybe at age 36 or 37 in mixed martial arts. And you have guys who had to learn, in their 30s or 40s about the other pieces of the sport. So this next level of athletes coming up, that watched MMA from the time they were a young kid, they are nothing like the people we saw 20 years ago. They are so much better. And again, I don't want to disrespect the past. It's just that they've been training their whole life for this versus learning it in their 30s and 40s. So it's kind of like walking to them. It's second nature to, do a go-go plata, to put in a guillotine choke, to try, standing triangle. They can do anything because they've been doing it their whole life. So that's the part that's really exciting when you take a look at the future.
I'm sure you see this a lot. I know when we book our show and we get pitches from managers or PR, and they're trying to describe who it is they're bringing on. When we first started the show, it was he's a wrestler who's trying to develop his hands, or a jiu-jitsu who's trying to develop wrestling. That's come and gone almost. Now we're just getting fighters. It's people that from the get-go, like you said, from the age they hit their mats, they're training and everything, and everybody's just going to be well-rounded. This sport's going to be so much different, even 5-10 years from now, than what it was, especially for some of those pioneers like a Randy Couture.
Yeah.
All those guys had to kind of learn on the fly on the big stage. Can you imagine learning on the big stage?
Yeah, I mean, you take a look now, too, and even with the one card that was on this morning, it was headlined by women. We've had shows headlined by women. You had this show in Brazil this past weekend was headlined by women. And so that seems to be the hot thing in the sport right now, too, is watching, we take a look at the people that came from our network, the Holly Holmes, the Mackenzie Derns, the, Chris Cyborg came off the network again from our Muay Thai side back in, and you take a look, the women are as marketable or more than the men right now, and getting those shots to headline cards. And Macy Barber, who's 4-0, is getting to be on a Contender series because there aren't as many, but you're finding more and more, and the ones that are coming into the sport are really good.
And not just the big names, by the way. And I like to provide the sample size too, which is another unique one. Not just the big names who make it to the big stage, but as somebody who breaks down every fight card for the big promotions, UFC, Bellator, and especially for UFC, break down watch footage in every fight from undercard, to the top fighter. It brings me to doing tape study to a lot of promotions that are obviously outside of the UFC. Some of those promotions are going to pop up more than others, obviously.
Right.
And yes, I'm constantly watching something from your network or the other, whether it's, even when I'm diving into the Muay Thai kickboxing for some of these competitors making their crossover. Yep. And it's so great just to have that wealth of footage, resource. And when you have great people calling the action too, it almost feels like you're watching revisionist history when you're hearing guys, whether it's Pat or Chevello, talking about these talents who you're going to see years later. Hit the fast forward button, and they're doing big things.
Well, this was, for me, I grew up in an age of boxing when that was going on, and I watched Tuesday night fights with Al Albert and Sean O'Grady, and you guys are probably a little too young, but I was watching it every week, and I'd watch B-Hop from Philadelphia and watching, all these guys come down and watch all the stars be formed there, and that was kind of, where we've gone on Friday nights, that our fans have to be the people that want to see those up-and-comers, to see the next level of stars, to be a little grittier. Would I say our show looks like UFC, Bellator or one? No, they spend a ton more money on production, but I think we have some of the best talent out there and much better job of recruiting that next level of talent, and the people at LFA and CES have been doing that for us for years right now, and over the last 14 years, I know it says 35, but roughly 45 promotions. You'll see a lot of them tonight on Cage Side, and next week on our 400th show, you'll see a lot of those clips of people that started on our network and now are UFC champions. You'll see a lot of that transition, and we'll be showing you some of those, from the Daniel Cormiers to the Benson Hendersons to Chris Cyborgs and everybody who's appeared on our network to later become a champion, and you'll see all that on our network this Friday with the preview show, and next week on the 400th.
Let's continue on here with the phone calls and invite you guys to call in 866-522-2846. Right now we have Marco from Waco, Texas. What's up, Marco?
Marco from Waco. ¿Qué pasa, dudes?
¿Qué onda?
Marco.
Hey, did I forget to mention that Guido Caneri is un argentino hijo de puta? Did I forget to mention that?
So there's fights in Chile. Marco's from Chile, and Chiles don't get along with Argentinians, and we're kind of lucky because George and I are part Peruvian, and they don't really get along with us either.
There you go.
He's been on a terror lately.
There you go.
I'm learning that now. Apparently, I'm getting educated this week through Marco's phone calls. What's up, Marco?
So. A little bit talking about the ESPN Plus deal, and I think there is a seismic shift that is going on when it comes to the broadcasting of the USA. On the MMA media, Ariel Helwani is going to ESPN. I mean, big loss for MMA fighting. I don't know what's going to happen with the MMA Fight Hour, because it's not an hour. But that is big news, man. I mean, John Morgan was talking about it on the Road Show, and I think there is more movement to come when it comes to the media side of things. What is your guys' text? I mean, super happy for Helwani. I do not know how Dana White is going to feel about it. If Dana White thought that area is going to be a ton in the side before, it's going to be a big friggin' bush on the side of Dana White now. So I got your guys' opinion on that. Enjoy the fights this weekend, dudes.
I thought about that as well, and there's so many subplots with everything, it feels like, in our sport, but it's something that Ariel's always wanted to do since day one. He's brought up that's always been his main goal, so it didn't surprise me that he went. What did kind of surprise me was, it's pretty much out there. Him and Dana don't really get along, and I just thought that would be something that when you're negotiating your deals may have came up, and I would imagine he would have said, I don't really like that guy. And Dana apparently has a little bit of an influence, and it really caught me by surprise. So for them to coexist, we'll see. Ariel's never really stepped back on his feelings. He'll come out and say whatever, and we'll see how long that relationship lasts. But hopefully, they're both such important figures in the sport that you would hope they could just eventually put it all behind them.
Well, maybe it's a bigger work than John Cena and Nikki Bella. Maybe they really like each other, and they're just working us all. And listen, my impression would be that ESPN probably cleared that with Dana, and Dana was fine with it. My gut is ESPN wouldn't have hired a guy like Ariel if Dana and UFC weren't going to give him access and were going to be an asshole to him. I'm sure they worked something out beforehand versus just. Why would ESPN go spend $150 million a year to bring in somebody that their new partner hates their guts? So I presume they said, hey, this is the guy who has the most eyeballs. This is the guy who can bring in some traffic. He knows it well. Dana, are you okay? Are UFC, Ari, are you okay if we use this guy? And I'm sure they got a blessing. I can't imagine it went in a vacuum and purposefully let's bring in somebody who'll piss off our brand new partner. So I wish Ariel the best with that, but I hope for his sake and presumably so, I would imagine they cleared that up.
Yeah, my basic math is that you've got Dana's a Vegas guy, and Brett Okamoto, who does a fantastic job and has been a forefront of a lot of stories as far as the ESPN side of things. He's here. I imagine that's an easy fix if we're connecting the dots. And also, it seems like to me from the outside looking in, and I'm not the only one with his opinion, Dana's been a little less hands-on as far as the UFC and the UFC product, and I imagine that has a kind of a butterfly effect as far as the decisions and the people involved in these decisions. But I got to imagine someone like yourself, Andrew, when these things are announced, you can't help but even if it's maybe not a deal that you are personally involved with, I'm sure with your background, your experience and position, you can't help but do the fill in the blanks math on maybe a different level than the average Joe does. So when you see the other part of that, I guess, is Jeff Wagenheim from fighting went over before Ariel. You kind of see the writing on the wall there. They're obviously trying to beef up their stock as far as their stable for the workload maybe coming in. But what kind of math do you do there as far as what do you think ESPN's doing as connecting these dots?
I look at it real differently. I read Dave Meltzer's take on the ESPN Plus deal. I had a little different take than other people, but I look at it too. It was you can take a look at that cost as a marketing cost as well. ESPN and Disney is a giant company. I mean, you take a look and imagine the amount of marketing you have to do to get people to know about this ESPN Plus app. Nobody knows about it. They make this deal now. Every male between 18 and 34 knows about the ESPN Plus app, whether they want to know whether they want to pay or not. But 3 weeks ago, none of us were talking about ESPN Plus, and every MMA keyboard warrior now knows about ESPN Plus, whether they should pay, whether a fight pass is too expensive. Everybody's got a take on it all, but it is a really good way for them to get the name out on ESPN Plus. Number two, it provides a lot of content. I know there was a take, it's $15 million a show for 10 shows, but then you're not valuing Dana White's Contender series at anything. You're not valuing the pre-show and post-show at anything. You're not valuing the fight library at anything. So there's a lot more and many more components there, and you have to remember the numbers that are being talked about when you talk about Fox assets that were getting purchased, originally, and now, you get a rival deal from Comcast for $8 billion more to buy Fox assets, and then, you have ESPN and Disney come back. There's so much money being thrown around that $150 million in the grand scheme to launch your OTT service isn't as much as some people might think.
If there was ever a criticism on Disney, it's always been that ESPN's coverage of boxing hasn't really always been the greatest. It's been okay.
Hey,
and
Teddy Atlas was getting pissed. Teddy Atlas is not happy.
You might want to lock that door. Even if you go back to hockey, right, when the Ducks came around, what was the first thing they didn't like, right, was the fights during the hockey. So,
sure.
How do you think that relationship with being Disney and then having a sport that's so edgy like mixed martial arts, do you think something has been fixed throughout these years?
Oh, I think they are, listen, ESPN from a cable perspective is the highest cost channel out there. And so I think then you take a look at what's gone on the OTT side. They're really taking a look at what their place will be in sports going forward. And live sports is the thing you need. That you need live content to keep the viewers, to keep your advertisers, to keep that younger demographic. And I think UFC and also WWE provide that. And I think it's time that those rights deals are just, very big right now. And frankly, if you're WME IMG, you need those kind of rights deals to pay off the debt service that you did to buy this company. So, and then you take a look, WWE was taking money from the Saudis to do this show with the greatest Royal Rumble ever recently. And they took some criticism, but the money is out there right now. And you change the tax code as President Trump did. So now they keep even more of the profit. There's a lot of pluses if you were an owner right now, and plus now you have sports betting that's going to become legalized in different states, and you add that to the value of the UFC and ESPN, and maybe ESPN, who knows, maybe they have their own sports betting app one day, and so, right, so there's a lot of things where people go 150 million, that's too much, but I think in the grand scheme for ESPN Plus, it's a great way to get people to know about their app.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick commercial break. You are listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93, and we'll be right back with Andrew Simon.
listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once.
King Kong has a lot of shit on them. Like a lot, especially Goes. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Yeah, we've been told King Kong half. We're back here on MMAjunkie Radio. We have Andrew Simon here in studio. Andrew, it wasn't too long ago that we spoke to Mauro Ranallo, and he was promoting his upcoming documentary, The Bipolar Rock and Roller. Mauro spent a good time over there with you guys doing Inside MMA.
And New Japan Pro Wrestling.
New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yep.
And aside from that, you've just known him for a long time.
One of the most talented guys ever in our business.
Are you going to be tuning in? Have you
of course.
seen some of it already? What are your thoughts?
You know, I've seen the previews so far. I haven't seen the full film yet, but I know in talking to Frank Shamrock back when they were talking about doing this and Mauro's commitment to it, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I mean, it's a serious disease, and I think his, just even watching the trailers where people like dismissing it to be, oh, you'll have a better day tomorrow. I mean, that would be the first thing when you talk about it. Somebody's having a bad day, you're like, tomorrow will be better. Stop it. Stop effing around. You're just fine. And I don't think we understand how deep it goes when you do have that bipolar personality and how it can just take over. And I think he's going to bring a lot of awareness to a topic that we're probably not all that familiar with.
This is a thing that a lot of people are hearing for the first time.
Sure.
We're used to seeing him calling pro wrestling some of the greatest MMA fights on the planet, some of the greatest boxing matches on the planet, and we all just kind of assume that anybody doing that is just 100% okay and they're living the great life. A lot of people have known Mauro for a while, known this behind the scenes. And, I mean, it was your job to hire him on the network, so I'm sure you were aware of it. What were talks like early on in that, and did you ever have any reservations on that?
I think our biggest concern, and we would talk about it with Frank and Mauro, is just the amount of work he was doing when he was doing Inside MMA for us. I think he was doing WWE at the time. He had the Showtime boxing. He had Inside MMA. I forgot if we were still doing New Japan with him at the time too. I mean, he just had he keeps his plate so full. And, it wasn't even as much about the bipolar part as just on the burnout part for any person that could fly across the world to come back. I mean, literally, he had no days off because he was going to Monday Night Raw, Tuesday night SmackDown. He had to be there for the pay-per-view over the weekend for Sunday, get there on Saturday, and that was WWE. Add in Showtime, add in our stuff, Inside MMA Live on Friday. He just keeps his plate so full. And so I just think for any human, he keeps his schedule very, very busy.
Yeah, definitely. So here's what I think we should do, Danny. We're going to have our last guest of the day, Roy Nelson, another person that Andrew is very familiar with.
Yes, sir.
He's a Las Vegas guy. Why don't we take that last break, get it out of the way so we don't have to worry about breaking in the middle of the interview. And we will be back here on MMAjunkie Radio. I'm Goes, that's Dan, and over here is Andrew Simon. We'll be back with Roy Nelson, hopefully.
He's taught Andy Griffith how to whistle. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Alright, we're back on MMAjunkie Radio. Andrew Simon, CEO of AXS TV, is in studio to promote 400 fights. And I'm sure you're probably going to get this question over and over, but is there, maybe we'll take a different stab at it, maybe the most controversial moment for you in the 400 fights? Is there anything you can point to, or just a funny night, a funny incident, anything?
I mean, there's lots. I mean, obviously, we had our Affliction show that had Mr. Donald Trump and other people in the crowd, and Fedor recently interviewed by the FBI, I guess, on the Affliction shows. We had Fallon Fox fighting Ashley Evans Smith, and Fallon Fox was the first transgender fighter fighting. That was a big deal. Holly Holmes knockouts. You have Alistair Overeem and some different in the Reem when he was fighting over there in Japan, and whether he was going to be big when he came here. You had, all the controversy of where the best fighters were in the early days. So there's always something going on.
All right, let's switch over to Bellator 200 in London, May 25th. This is going to be a fun card, and our boy, your good friend, Andrew, Roy Nelson, he's joining us here on the hotline. What's going on, Roy Nelson?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Not too bad. Gorgeous George is off. This is Goes. I have our fight analyst, Dan Tom, with us. And a good friend of yours, Andrew Simon, is also in studio with us.
Yeah, he got the improved team. George is off doing a cardiogram. The rest of us are healthy and feeling good. And we got Roy Nelson, who's doing his 200th show for Bellator on the day of our 400th show on AXS TV Fights. So, I mean, luckily theirs is a little earlier in their day. We're not head-to-head exactly. But I'm excited to see Roy and to teach Mirko a lesson, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Well, I mean, I have to be somewhat impartial. I'm trying to pretend to be a host here. We know I don't do this for a living. Well, I mean, come on, you know. I mean, well, let's go to Roy. If it's not hopefully, how's this going to end and what's going to happen here?
I get my hand raised at the end of the night. That's what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, are we taking him to the ground? Are we going to just give him one of your overhand rights? Like, what are we thinking about?
I'm thinking from the last guy that asked me the same question.
Oh, boy.
I'm a complete mix. So we're going to do a little bit of standing. We're going to do a little bit of ground. Then we're going to go back to the standing. Then we're going to go back to the ground. But then at the end of the day, I'm going to get my hand raised, and the fans will be happy.
There you go.
And you've been training over at Extreme Couture most of this camp? And what's been going on? Who you been training with?
You know what? I've been training over at Prince Ranch, Extreme, of course. With over Extreme, you got anywhere from like Travis Brown, then I've got Francis, Bagora, Dewey Cooper, Mario Wall, and Tim Johnson. So I've definitely, definitely in this camp kind of branched out quite a bit.
Obviously we can't really predict what's going to happen, but the one thing, if you were to ask me what's your go-to in this fight, I will say that Roy Nelson will come in prepared, because every time we go to one of these gyms, he's always there. He's never, if you told me gun to the head who's going to be at the gym today, I'd probably say Ray Sefo and Roy Nelson will be there for sure. Roy, at this point in your career, like some people kind of get a little lackadaisical in their training. They take a day off. You've never been that guy. What is it about your work ethic that you've been able to be so consistent in that area?
I think it's just, you have to love what you do, for work-wise, and just, you just go to work and just have fun. I think the worst part of actually being a fighter is actually the camps. Camp is what sucks, because that's actually work, and then the rest is just fun.
Andrew was mentioning earlier on. Oh, go ahead.
It's the guys that don't want to go, come into practice when it's actually their day off.
Andrew was mentioning early on about your son and how hard he can hit sometimes. And we were talking about, how nice your wife is. Your son is a great kid. Can you talk about them? They're a big part of your life, but they also love the mixed martial arts aspect of your life. Can you talk about them, how they are as a stress reliever for you?
The one thing about, my family is, I feel very blessed. I think you have to feel, gratitude towards, what you do to be able to spend time with the people that you want to be surrounded with by. So, like, just being around, being able to do what I love, and then be able to spend, every waking moment with my kid and my wife. I feel very blessed. Where most people are like, they want to be, they're like, oh, I need you to go to school, or or I need my little time away. I need, boys' night out, or girls' night out. Like, me and my wife actually love each other. It's one of those rare things. I know it's hard in MMA.
Well, the one thing I was trying to get to was that we had Macy Barber on earlier, and she's 20, and she's been training since she's, 7, 8 years old. And I was saying that's a little different than when Randy Couture was coming into the sport in the mid-30s. And I was saying, like, somebody like Jax, at 3 years old, he's probably watched more jiu-jitsu than Randy watched in his 30s. So, this next level of kids coming up will have a background like nothing we've ever seen before.
Yeah, Jax, I think he started jiu-jitsu like probably 4 weeks ago, so I think he's been to 4 jiu-jitsu classes, and he's right there in the middle with his athletic ability. But, at the end of the day, I don't want him, being a mixed martial artist. I want him to use his mind.
There you go. Yeah. Well, AXS TV. You're home for MMA. Well, we'll have to put him in as he'll put an anno. Hey, it'll probably be time. I'll probably be ready to be retired by that point. No doubt.
Hey, Roy. Now, obviously, you've faced Mirko Cro Cop before in the past, but it was a while back ago. Is it so far removed that it's not even worth popping in any of that footage or watching any of that fight?
The only thing that you watch from that fight is that you see Cro Cop still has his head kicks, you just look at the stuff that he still does today, that he does, what made him who he is. It's the same thing by looking at that fight with me, if he, on the opposite end, you go, oh, okay, that's what makes Roy, how do I stop that?
Mm-hmm. Now for you, this is now your third fight with Bellator. Has that comfort level, have you gotten to it now where you're just used to the circular cage, or used to seeing the same faces? Have you gotten into that routine yet?
Yeah, the only thing that's different that I really, I don't want to say mentally would not prepare for was, the last fight, was just how the warm-up is, because Bellator does have a lot of commercials. So when you're like, okay, we're going to go, and then all of a sudden they go, okay, hold on, that ended early. So it's sort of like, when you're used to swing bouts or something like that, that you're more used to, they have to give you more of the specific time with commercial time, because they're like, oh, we got to fit this commercial in, before we put you out there.
Yeah, that's very
so
good.
like last time I think I warmed up 5 or 6 times, and then that's why I had a slow start, with Matt.
Roy Nelson joins us here on MMA Junkie Radio. He will be fighting Mirko Cro Cop May 25th, 2018, London, England, the SSE Arena. Let me turn it over to our fight analyst, Dan Tom. What do you have for Roy?
I got 2 things. One random question, but before I get to the random question, I just want to touch on a note you guys just touched on, the environment of Bellator. Roy just talked about commercial timings, little things we don't think about that are pretty important. But Roy, I got to imagine you feel you have more of a home court advantage here, in the sense of not just you guys are fighting in the cage. Obviously, you guys have both fought in the cage. You guys have both fought each other before in a cage. But what I mean is, if you were to maybe look at both of your games and where you progress in the last most recent chapters of your career, your cage wrestling has been something that at least from an outsider's perspective, it looks like it's improved over the last couple of years, whereas Mirko has been fighting more in a ring. Do you think that's going to play a factor in your guys' fight?
No, because he's coming off a 6-fight win streak. He's the current risen champ, at the heavyweight. So for me, I hope I get the best Cro Cop, because then it forces me to be the best Roy Nelson. But home court advantage, I think any country that I go to is always a home court advantage for me.
I got you there. And the random question is not too random, because it has to do with Cro Cop. That's probably the reason why I'm asking. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't. But I've always wanted to ask you, Roy, UFC 137. Obviously, you guys faced off there, but for the hardcores that remember that, there was, an outdoor press conference. It was a little bit of a different change-up the UFC was doing. And, maybe it was the Joe Rogan narrative where he was always saying that, oh, Roy's really a middleweight fighting at heavyweight and all that. But it made it look like you were making a concerted effort to get down in weight. And you were even doing certain, antics, if you will, where you're getting on the scale with clothes on. And what was Roy going to look like? What was his weight going to be? And then after that fight, of course, you shave down, you come out clean cut for the post-fight interview. Is there anything more to that in hindsight now that we're looking back on that? Was there anything you were trying to do there?
No, the thing is, the media and the fans made me the Kim Kardashian of MMA. So, I just, I had to pull my Kanye West out of me.
I like it. Hey, Roy, now look, you mentioned the last fight, Matt Mitrione. Is this one of those scenarios where, regardless of it later on in the tournament as a replacement or even down the road as a champion, do you just feel like eventually your paths will cross again?
Yeah, definitely. The only person that would make that not happen is Matt. That would probably be the only way.
When we look at your record, where you fought, the organizations you fought, the way you finished fights, what is really left on your MMA bucket list?
On my bucket list is, I definitely want to get the championship cup. That's the reason why I came over to Bellator. That's one. Fedor would be one, just for the pure fact that if I could fight Bellator and fight Fedor in Bellator, that'd be I'd be able to get the trifecta of heavyweights, beating Big Nog, Cro Cop, and Fedor, because I'd be the only one that'd be able to do that.
Oh, wow, that would be fun, man.
Well, there's a good chance for him to be back in this tournament, too. Somebody always gets hurt in a heavyweight tournament. And
look at Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it's quite likely we'll see Roy back in there, before it's all said and done, and maybe gets a shot to do it all by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Roy, well, we know you're getting closer to the fight. We've taken up enough of your time, but it all goes down SSE Arena, London, England, May 25th, Bellator 200. Roy, thanks for spending some time with us.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Roy.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon. Hey, that's the thing, man. This dude is always prepared. He always is, and you always know you're going to get a good fight. But it's so funny, when it comes to Fedor Emelianenko, I don't know that I've seen so many fighters kind of geek out over the possibility of fighting the guy. And then they have to flip that switch to, this is great, this is something I always dreamed of, but now I got to beat this guy.
He was just such a mythical character when I first got in the business, too, and, the aura around him. And even today, when you go to the shows with Bellator, there's something special about Fedor. Today, clearly, he was on our network over 11 years ago, so it's not the same Fedor 11 years later. But with the Mir fight, it was exciting. I thought Mir clipped him and hurt him for a little bit, and then he did the same thing like he did with Arlovsky, right? He gets hurt, he bounces off the turnbuckle, comes back out and smashes Arlovsky with one punch. And so he has that explosive power for a guy that looks fairly roly-poly, for lack of better words. You don't expect that level of power to be KOing 30-pound bigger heavyweights, and he's always had it. And he has an amazing counter-punch quickness that, I think a lot of heavyweights appreciate. And plus, it's kind of like, the beating the legend of a sport. If you're a heavyweight, you're like, hey, I want a chance with that legend. Sure. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about, I brought up a documentary, Mauro Ranallo's documentary.
Yep.
Something that you guys put together, Cage Side 400. When something like that gets done, do they just bring it to your desk and say, it's done, what do you think? Or how much input do you have in stuff like that?
We have such a great team, and we've been doing this for so long. What'll happen is we'll talk about what do we want the show to look like. Andrew, what were your favorite moments, of the last, 14 years? And I'll say, hey, here are my favorite 10 to 12 fights. Here's, everybody else's. We'll kind of go through it, and then we'll go, hey, do we have the rights to this footage? If we don't, can we get it? Can we get footage from UFC to show when guys came from us to become champions there? So I really am much more involved with the business aspect of it and kind of a high level. But the actual putting together of a show, that's Jamie McClintock and also Jason Vaughn, our executive producer, and they'll put in all the work and the heavy hitting and creative, and then I'll take a look at a copy I got this week. But I really, Ron Kruk obviously had a huge input into this one, being that he's been here the whole time, and you'll see a lot of Ron and Kenny, and you'll see appearances from Quadros and Coker and Kogan, tons of people.
Chavello.
Yeah, Chavello, and everybody along the way that's had a piece, you'll see in there. But as the business guy, we kind of keep quiet and we stay low profile. This is rare occasions that they let me out to be seen in public.
When it comes to your channel, people often talk about the UFC and Bellator, and not so much Bellator as far as the staff doesn't really get out there as much, but with the UFC, their staff almost become mini celebrities, and they talk about the family environment, but I really noticed that with you guys, it really is. When you guys sit down and just talk, it just feels like a big family, and anybody that ever goes on to do something else, they always say great things, they come back, and just, I got to get a little glimpse of the 400 cage side, and just hearing Chavello's voice again, and you just go, oh man, I miss those days.
Yep.
It's always been great, and I know that you're the head there making all that happen.
Well, we appreciate it, and definitely it's a unique environment when you're on the road with guys 40 weeks a year, and putting in the effort in this business, and we all feel lucky to do what we do.
LFA 40 Aguilar versus Lee, May 25th, 2018 at the Bomb Factory in Dallas, Texas. Make sure you tune in. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us.
Hey,
in the studio
thanks,
today.
guys.
We
Appreciate it.
Have a blast when you're around. And Dan, Tom, you did take it to a new level.
Did I?
I think you did.
All right, I'll take it.
Gorgeous George, he was fantastic. He was here for the first hour, and then he took off. And he'll be back Monday, though. Don't worry.
Yeah, he will.
Danny, you'll get your review later in the mail. Wow, you did. Great job today, Danny. Wow. Thank you to the callers who called in. Thank you to our guests. We will be back on Monday with another program, another episode of MMA Junkie Radio. Until then, be champions.
And the one-arm bandits crashing, almost home down.